morning, good afternoon, good evening, good something. Hope you're all doing well. Hope you guys can hear me just fine. Welcome to another episode of a Candor Gander, where we get to meet DFK community members like you, one interview at a time. Um, if you've never joined us before, feel free to grab a drink, take a seat, and welcome to the flock here. I am getting over an illness here, so if you hear, I swear I've been sick since I think I started this show. I don't think anyone's, I'm sorry, no one's been able to pinpoint exactly what it was until just this weekend, and I'm on antibiotics now, so hopefully it's all up from here. We'll see. We'll find out. Consider a like, subscribe, turn on those notifications, follow me on Twitter. Uh, Without further ado, let's go ahead and get started here. I like to always get it started with a quote, set the theme for this show. Uh, Theme quote for this week or this episode. In every conceivable manner, the families are linked to our past, bridge the future. And this was a quote by Alex Haley. And we'll weave that into the conversation here shortly. Um, Thank you very much, Kupo. Appreciate it. Yes, the jewel hat. I got it, and I was actually at the hospital, and I'm there, and with my I'm thinking my proverbial deathbed, and the nurse goes, What's that logo?" And I had no energy to tell her anything about DeFi Kingdoms. Like it's a game. Like, oh, it's a game. I was like, yes, leave me alone, please. Anyhow, without further ado, we'll go ahead and cue our guest for today, Raph. Welcome. How are we doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, and glad you're on the mends. It's no fun. We had a few bouts of illness run through the Raph household at the start of this year in the winter and the late spring that felt like it never ended. So glad you're on the mends now.
Yeah, I imagine you have kids. I have a 10-month-old, and she brings a lot of things from daycare. 90% of the time, it's germs. I prefer she left those there, but and not, nevertheless, she brings them with her, so we'll take it. So tell me about yourself.
Well, as I like to describe it, as I kind of wrote up a grant recently for our Adventures in DeFi Kingdoms. I was trying to sit back and describe Neindorf and myself, and I say a couple of average dudes with above average work ethic. Now, I would say, Neindorf deserves a lot more compliments than me. So average dude with maybe above average work ethic. And here to have some fun with Adventures in DeFi Kingdoms. So, I started out my career formally as a industrial engineer, and then have transitioned, my career into more the business side of things professionally, and a gamer on the side. So it's been a really fun ride playing Adventures in DeFi Kingdoms so far.
So how did you get into crypto? How what was your first sort of dabbing, dipping of those toes?
Yeah, it was. I would say I'm pretty late into the overall crypto game. I would say it was probably towards the end of probably 2020, I think it was. My brother-in-law, it had been messaging me, and we had done a few other things together. And he decided to try to convince me to get into crypto. I started into the crypto space. At that point in time, just dabbling in a few different altcoins. I really didn't have at that point in time enough money to throw around into anything like Bitcoin or Ethereum. So, kind of hung out with the alts for a while. And that's my foray into the crypto world.
So be honest, Doge, is that what got you in?
No, he
No.
actually got me in on, and I'm not 100% on my timeline. I think it was in 2020. He got me into ADA. into
Okay.
Cardano.
Yeah.
And I,
Yeah.
really got sucked in with watching the YouTube videos of Charles Hackinson. I think I'm saying his name
Yeah,
correctly.
Charles him. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
I'm bad at pronouncing names, so don't ask me to pronounce any names for you anytime soon.
Yeah.
um so okay, so that was your intro to crypto. How did
Yeah.
you hear about DFK? How did you get into DFK?
Yeah, DFK. We were at a playground date. My children and Neindorf actually,
Okay.
and this was it was just after launch. He got in pretty early, and he showed me the app on his phone. As we were having some downtime watching the kids play, and he mentioned, this is a pretty neat game. It's gonna feel really familiar. Here, check this out. Look at these heroes. They're actually NFTs. They're gonna have a whole bunch of this future utility out there. And he showed me his phone, and I was like, how do you get into this? And at that point in time, like, if you recall, any of you, those of you who were in the game a little earlier, it felt like it was a 38-step process to try to,
Yes.
get
Yeah.
MetaMask, get the RPC. Every time I was doing another one of these steps, I felt like, and I'm slightly technically savvy, but not very technically savvy. And so, like, everything that I was doing, I was like, man, this feels pretty sus. Like, what are we doing here? I was like, "Are you sure I'm supposed to connect my wallet address to this website?" He's like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." So it took me a while, but after a few days, I jumped in, and that was like the really old school map for any of you who were here at that point in time, and started listening to the AMAs, and really got sucked in by the leadership presence of the team, and the vision and the roadmap that they had. And so the rest has been history.
I think of I'm sure you've seen those memes of like what a programmer is and what a programmer what people think a programmer does, and what people think they do is like super intricate, and looks like they're getting into the matrix. That's how it felt for me trying to get into the game. It's like, wow, I'm deep diving into
Yeah,
the internet here. I mean, I'm I'm
right.
I'm I'm technically savvy myself, but I mean it took me. I watched a bunch of videos to try and I'll never forget when I got started. It was and you'll probably remember this because I think this may have been January, right when the tavern was going through its hiccups, and like the API wasn't loading up properly, and you didn't know what was up for sale and what wasn't.
Right.
I'd done all my research. They were installing flooring on on our house, and I just had to be here, sort of let them do their thing. And I said, hey, I've got a couple hours to kill, thinking it'd be an hour or two. They were here, from morning to evening, late evening. I took all that time doing my research, trying to find, like, doing a deep dive as to what the right hero would be, and I'm excited, right? I go into the tavern. I'm looking up, the right hero, and sure enough, like, not available, not available. I was like, oh boy, I'll take any hero. There's a fire sale on heroes. Everyone's FOMOing in here. I gotta jump in. Um, and needless to say, the heroes I did end up with, not only were they overpriced, but they were underperforming heroes. We'll leave them at that.
We call those Steve the Pirates over on
Yes.
our podcast. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and tell me about your podcast. I can't let you continue on without mentioning your more popular podcast. I joke around with my wife. I tell her my podcast is, last I checked, the most popular geese podcast about DFK there is. And that may be true unless someone else decided to start something else up. But tell me about yours. I'm sure many of you have sort of heard your podcast, but I want to, what genesis for the podcast.
Yeah, it actually so we started I think our first episode was sometime in December, early December of last year. And we actually, so my brother-in-law Neindorf and myself, we went in on a Gen Zero hero together, and so we all jointly purchased one, and we would pass the hero around every every 3 days for the summons, and we would constantly be texting and talking about strategy. And so, one night we called each other up, we jumped on Discord, and we talked through our strategy, our plan, how we're going to maximize return on investment. And we started to build some Excel tools and what then transformed into Google Sheets.
Mm.
And we were like, all right, so this is who I'm planning on summoning with in the tavern at this time. This is who I'm going after. And at that point in time, we were just starting to figure out, some of the how the recessives work, and when you pair two classes together, that you can ultimately end up getting an advanced class. It's like right as we were getting into this, and so we were like, oh yeah, we got to go for the ninjas, because we had a pirate, a Gen Zero pirate was our first one, and we kept kind of going from there, and all of a sudden I pitched the idea to Neindorf. I was like, hey, you know what? Actually, this is kind of fun talking at night about adventures about DeFi Kingdoms. Let's just do a podcast. I was like, I'll do all the work if you don't mind being recorded. I'll figure out how to post this. I'd never done any kind of podcast recording before that, and so we ended up coming up with the Adventures in DeFi Kingdoms right then and there.
Oh boy, and the rest is history, as they say, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, that's cool. We'll do a deeper deep dive on your website here in a minute. But I want to talk more about you. When I was sort of I had asked you to jump on, and you graciously said yes. I asked for, give me some of your favorite topics, points of conversation, and you gave me, family, house projects, and working.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't help but, when you said all that, I couldn't help but sort of visualize this image. And it was so funny because I was on the Gen chat yesterday on Discord, for DFK Gen chat, and I started seeing some of this sort of some of these images come through as well. It's like, oh boy, they're reading my mind. But remember a show by the name of Home Improvement by any chance?
Yeah,
Because
for sure.
that's what came to mind. I was like, oh boy, that's Raph. So
Yeah.
tell me, family time house project working. You sound like a very, like, family oriented sort of person. But how does that all weave in together for you? I mean, it seems kind of obvious, but tell me about it.
Yeah, first off, speaking of home improvement, it's funny because it's almost like you were reading my mind. My neighbor just my good neighbor installed a privacy fence. He has two very large, half pit, half mutt dogs. They're not puppies anymore, and they kept jumping the fence on him. And so he
No.
had to install a large, tall fence, and it's just tall enough for me to, poke my head and my eyes above the other side, just like in Home Improvement. So,
Oh boy, how
so we joked about that.
appropriate.
Yeah. All right. So, it's challenging. Definitely lean on the wife a lot, and we try to make sure that we're carving out space for not only our home projects and our professional careers, but of course prioritizing family time. And so I think the way that we've done that best, and it sounds a little silly and simple, but just being really intentional about the hours that we have and the way that we're going to spend our time. And so I've had to we've had to really come up with ways on how do we incorporate our kids into house projects as a way to both leverage family time and to do projects. And so my oldest 7-year-old, he helped me with pulling nails out of
Yeah,
floorboards.
can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you. I think I lost internet connection briefly, but continue.
Oh, all
Balancing
right. So
family.
yeah, it's been challenging, and I think it's I look for opportunities to combine activities into one. So
Hmm.
recently I brought my 7-year-old into a project. We were actually reworking the floors in our house and redoing the trim. And so I had him helping me pull nails out of floorboards, and out of the trim pieces. So I think it's a combination of how do you focus with the free time that you're going to have, set a plan, be intentional, Make sure you're on the same page as your partner. And then when you do have that time, making sure you're staying in the moment and valuing it for what it's worth, which is priceless in my opinion.
No, of course. I was watching, and I've seen a couple of these videos sort of going around the social media interwebs, right? But people talking about how millennial sort of parents are built a bit different, sort of different in respects to or in comparison to some of our, older generations.
Mhm.
And how, and I don't know what it is, right? I don't know, I'm not a sociologist or a psychologist or anything, but I agree. I'm sort of the same way too, where I try and really value, sort of make the most of the time. I was watching another video where, my daughter is 10 months old, and the video said something to the effect of, "Oh, each summer is, one less summer that you'll spend with your child, and this is the first of 18 more summers." And my wife goes, "18 summers? Oh boy, when you put it that way, that's not a whole lot of summers."
Yeah, you want to know a stat that's even a little more impactful. And now I'm going to butcher the actual statistic itself, but it's a really high percentage. It's something like 90%, is that you will spend 90% of the time that you will ever spend with your child before the age 18.
I heard that too. We must be on some of the same parent social media websites. Yeah,
Right.
and I heard that too, and it baffled the mind. I was like, no way.
Yeah.
And I think that the comment or the context I heard it in was, 90% give or take, depend on how good you were to your kid. Uh, you know,
Sure.
they might want to leave the house before then, and maybe not see you more than that, extra 10%.
Right.
Just crazy to think about, right? Absolutely. Something else I know about you by listening to your podcast, and your profile pic might give it away. You're a big fan of Jurassic Park.
Of course. Yeah.
It's not, when I think of like, hey, what's your favorite movie? I feel like I end up hearing in my head, the cliche Star Wars or Lord of the Rings or Jurassic Park. What about it?
So the story is a bit of a silly one. It takes me back to my college days and going to college, like many collegiate students out there, spent a lot of my time drinking with you know a red Solo cup in my hand,
There
and
you go.
we used to yeah we used to play this game called landmines, and it was
Mm,
actually you played with a beer can, and when you finished your beer can, you would or when you took a sip, you would spin a quarter, and the same hand that you took a sip with, you would have to pick up the quarter. And it sounds like an incredibly simple game, and it absolutely is, until you add alcohol into the mix and you get too drunk. Well, the funny thing about the game is, I don't think we've ever ended the game legitimately. The game has always ended with people just wandering off and stumbling away. So and I guess I'll explain the rules here for context. When you finish your beer can, it becomes a landmine, and the goal is you take that empty can and you place it on a spinning quarter, and then that person has to go again. And if someone knocks over that can, if they knock over three, they're out of the game. But we've never come to a final definitive winner in all my years of playing this. So, anyways, we had this table that was, because you're clever like this in college, it was a reversible table. So on one side it was a poker table, and on the other side it was just a flat, smooth piece of like plywood. It's something with a nice surface to it.
right.
And one night, after everyone kind of wandered around after a game of landmines, someone had a Sharpie marker, and we started just writing out Jurassic Park movie quotes. And since then, Jurassic Park has really just stuck with me as something that my friends and we like to just throw around the quotes. So that I would say, like, that's the first of my two Jurassic Park stories. If you don't mind, I can tell the other one
Oh
as
no,
well.
please, I want to hear it. Yeah.
All right. So I had a wonderful black lab puppy growing up, and she was just absolutely wild. And actually, my one of my best friends growing up, his favorite movie legitimately was Jurassic Park. Not to say that mine, it's not up there for me. Um, and so, what my brother and I decided to do was reenact the opening scene from Jurassic Park. Do you recall what that is? Where these poor hapless workers are trying to wrangle
Yeah.
the raptors into the cages. So we positioned ourselves in the mudroom, and my friend came over to my house one day. And in our kennel, we really riled up our black lab. Her name was Lacey at the time. Her name was Lacey. Riled her up. I put my brother inside the kennel and I
No.
reenacted the scene by like trying to pull his hands out. And now Lacey, I mean, there's like, she didn't bite him or anything like that. But she was having a blast, really riling around, shaking the entire kennel. And I was trying to pull him out. And I believe the line with the raptor trainer, I need to remember his name, but he goes, shoot her, shoot her. So from that point forward, I love doing anything Jurassic Park quote related. And so, occasionally when we're hanging out as a group of friends, we'll just start quoting Jurassic Park. A great movie from a quoting perspective. Its rewatch score to me is, it's bar none. So I
Okay,
actually haven't seen the new one, but I absolutely love the old one.
so I have to ask you. Okay, so have you seen them all? Have you seen, or is it like the first one, sort of the true best one, and all the other
Yeah.
sequels are non-existent to you?
No, I would say I just haven't been out. Going back to our prior conversation, it's a matter of priorities. And so if I can't get a movie on streaming, I'm probably not going to turn it on. So I have not had a chance to see the new one. I believe I've seen all the other ones. I think I only saw the most recent one once. Um, but outside of that, I would say I definitely like the first one the most. I believe I remember reading the Michael Crichton book as well, reading the original book. But the other ones, not bad. I definitely like them. I feel like they're, like there doesn't have. It's not like the Highlander that there could only be one. They can complement the universe and the story, and so I enjoy it. I kind of like the additional content, a little bit of rising tide raises all boats kind of situation.
Yeah, yeah. What it I chuckle because I'm a big Spider-Man fan, and I was looking forward to catching the newer Spider-Man movie, and I
Uh-huh.
forgot what it's called. Name escapes me. We had to wait until the movie came out, for us to be able to rent, put it on the TV. And big Spider-Man fan, I tell my wife after we finished watching it, I was like, you know what? I don't know if it was as good as people claimed it to be. It was getting great reviews from the critics and the audience. And she turns around and she looks at me. She goes, "I think maybe it has something to do with the fact we watched it in 20-minute increments." Like, you know what? You're probably right. But I mean, to your
Right.
point, right? You squeeze it in when you can.
Right.
um, so that's good. Another thing I heard you mention recently, you're really into the idea of the whole esports, e-game stuff, trying to and I don't know if this is part of your grant proposal or not, but you're trying to sort of uh voice some of these. And then I was thinking about the whole concept, and I heard you and Sandwich Punch talking about some of this, the idea of like, oh, watching other people play video games. And for the longest time, I was sort of on the same camp as those who would say, oh boy, why would you watch games when you could play them yourself? And then one day I stumbled on, of all the e-game sports you could watch, I stumbled on Tetris. And I was like,
That's
well,
fantastic.
this is yeah, it's like, well, this is silly. This is what, and then there I am, 30 minutes watching these guys like play like I've never
Mhm.
seen anyone play Tetris, and like, wow, this is captivating. I can see why there's a market to watch people
Right.
better than you play. So tell me about your fascination with esports.
Yeah, I think in the what I find so fascinating about all professional sports is you get to marvel at the art form that the players are, when they're performing at the highest level of competition. The skill and the talent is something that's really enjoyable for me to watch. I think, and then there's also the strategic element that really trips a trigger in my brain that I've really enjoyed watching, you know, esports in the past. I actually started out probably watching esports, StarCraft originally,
Mm,
and just seeing that, and learning about the different strategies that people would employ. It just gave me an avenue to try to practice my craft at the game. And so I'd watch a video, try to go emulate that, try to get better. And so I think it's kind of in this pursuit of knowledge and strategy, and trying to get better at practicing my own craft, that I want to make sure that I'm watching and learning from others. So that's kind of where my initial interest in esports came. Why I think it's really important is I believe that if this game is going to be successful, and today was an intense day, I guess I'll say at the least, and
yeah, we'll get
you know
there.
I think if this game is going to succeed, it really needs a very healthy player versus player game. And in order for that to be healthy, there has to be it has to be more than just a random mini game duel. It has to be a
Hmm.
game that involves strategy, where people feel like they can interject skill into playing the game, and that can give them a better chance to win. And so, I am an advocate for anything that supports the development of what I like to call a healthy metagame.
Hmm.
And I think at the apex is that if you get competition and you can start to tier that competition, then you're going to want to have people that commentate on that competition,
Oh yeah.
and get other people excited about watching that, and to talk about and elaborate on the strategies. I've never been good enough to be competitive in any of the games that I've played from a professional standpoint, but I'd love to talk about it. I'm full of hot air, so that'd be something that's a little bit of a dream of mine, I guess you could say. And so we try to find a way to incorporate that into our grant proposal, which is kind of merging our two platforms. On one hand, we have a website that does great data finding and data analysis. On the other hand, we're content creators with the podcast, and I'd love to find a way to kind of merge and combine those two together.
No, no, of course. I think I say this every episode, so maybe it's a catchphrase at this point, but I say what's good for the goose is good for the gander, and I think it's honestly true, right? I wholeheartedly appreciate all the content creators, all the developers who are working on things. I I know it's a lot of work that you guys put into these, just everything you guys do. And the more we hear about everything you're all doing, and listen to the passion behind what you're doing and sort of the purpose, it motivates the average. I mean, it motivates me to sort of say, wow, you know what, someone's so infatuated with this game that they're putting in their very precious valuable time into a project that um, you know, maybe many other people would not put any, an ounce of time into. So I appreciate that for sure. I will say though, strategy be damn, I imagine that regardless of what the meta says, this will be your go-to card, your go-to hero. Am I wrong?
You're absolutely not wrong. Yes, that is that's my the prized possession of my hero stable for sure. So yeah, Stern Breeze is my favorite hero that I have. I often joke around with people that I like playing the sneaky character that causes people to tilt. And so if there's a way that I can first annoy and tick off my opponent before, demoralize them to the point of quitting. Like, I would far more enjoy that aspect of playing the game. So truth be told, I was looking, it was around the Perilous Journey time frame, just before the Perilous Journey, actually. And I decided, I thought to myself at the time, I can't remember how much Jewel costs, but I said, if I send my Mythic Hero, um, would I pay 300 Jewel for them to return from the Mythic Journey? And, I said to myself, you know what? I think that the stat boost that's going to come from the Mythic Journey is going to be worth that much Jewel. And so I decided, you know what? I'm going to go out and buy another Mythic Hero. And so I actually ended up buying 2 floor Mythic Heroes, and I was very fortunate that they both survived. So
No way. Wow,
yeah,
that's impressive.
yeah. So I kept Bjorntar Sternbreeze here, and I'm kind of kicking myself. I sold the other one at the time to keep my all my other degen behaviors funded with summoning. I'm starting to looking at the price of a mythic, even a basic mythic PJ Survivor now. I'm like, oh gosh, I should have stuck with my original gut decision and just hung on to him. I think he'd be far more valuable. So I ended up selling some mythic archer for not that much. It's gonna sound really silly if I share what that was, but yeah. So that's that's absolutely going to be my hero for combat someday. I love I also like the statistic luck. I mean, that's something that
34 luck. Wow. I mean,
better to be lucky or good, and I say, why not both?
oh boy. Yeah, I don't know if Three Wolves is watching, but he's probably drooling. He's a DeFi degen, DFK degen. I chat with every so often. We're always sharing notes about awesome heroes we end up seeing in the tavern. All PJ heroes, sure enough.
Mhm.
And oh boy, those boosted stats. Now I have to ask you, the other hero you sold, do you ever go back and just like, let me look him up, see what they're doing with him or her?
No,
No? Okay, you've closed the
Well,
door,
close the door.
chapter's
That
over.
that actually, I had a story of chasing love lost at one point in time, and that did not turn out well for me in the game. Yeah, I was, one of the sorry suckers who accidentally sold a hero when they thought they were trying to rent them out. Um,
No,
it was
no.
it was also just before the Perilous Journey. I had a rare 3 out of 3 Sage. Um,
Wow.
and I was with the kids one night. They were trying to go to bed, and I was distracted trying to multitask. Should not do that. Remember, my advice early on: do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah.
Focus on your time at home. I was trying to multitask, and I was in the selling tab of the tavern, and I was canceling a lot of my sales and then relisting them for a slightly lower jewel value to try to move some heroes. And as I was doing that, I canceled a hire and then hit the sell button because I was in that menu, and then sold it for, I can't remember what it was, but it was something like 150 jewel at the time, which was
Oh
a lot.
Lord.
Um,
Yeah.
and I actually ended up going back out onto the market, buying it, lost about 200 jewel total in the transaction, but
Ouch.
ended up getting it back, sent it on the Perilous Journey, and he died. So that is that's a story of love lost. Yeah. Don't it's not all rainbows and roses with sending my 2 mythics out. I also lost this darn rare sage.
But you bought a great story.
Yes. Yeah, that's true. Well, and I actually sold crystal early on that I made from the earnings of the Perilous Journey. I wish I would have sent everyone. I think that would have been a better decision, but
Oh boy, yes,
hindsight's
I think
2020.
you and everyone else.
Yeah.
And then maybe not sold your crystal at 35 and maybe waited for when it jumped to 50 for some odd reason. That probably my other sort of regret, but
Yeah.
neither here nor there.
Right. Right.
So I have to ask you, how often do you use your own tool?
I probably 3-4 times a day. It depends on how much I'm playing. I actually did end up, I don't know how you or your community feels about it. Um, Thanos has a questing bot that is over on Discord, and he has if you jump onto Kingdom Builders, you can look at the project itself, and has gained a lot of traction for its legitimacy. I've actually trying to keep with the theme of the podcast tonight. In a way to save time and effort, I've actually sent a lot of heroes over there. So I have about 15 heroes that I have
Oh
auto
yeah.
questing right now. And so I'm playing the game itself a lot less. And so in that effect, not summoning as often, and I don't have as many alerts at the moment. And so I'm using the app a little less now, but I would say still a couple times a day when I log in, try to figure out what my next summon's going to be. I'm always trying to, look for, I spent probably way too much time this weekend trying to find cheap, advanced, skilled, advanced heroes. So like a ninja with an advanced 1, or a paladin with an advanced 2, something like that.
Yeah,
Spending
yeah.
a lot of time trying to find those, and just looking for that next edge when it comes to summoning and how to transform some of these in-game decisions into profit.
And then to recap for our listeners, Kingdom Builders, you said?
That's Kingdom Builders is the grant program right now that Adventures in DeFi Kingdoms has. I'll be honest, I'm coming into tonight a little underprepared. I was not able to catch any of the AMAs live,
Ah,
um,
no
and
worries.
just caught the notes. And so the holy text of Sandwich Punch, um, and so I'm a little. What I would say is it felt like that might have been one of the things that's called into. I could see it going a lot of different directions, but there was some conversation about what's going to happen to the development programs. Can they be funded? Will they be funded? Are they going to use the devs to do some of their game development? I don't know. I think that could impact the game quite a bit. But I have no idea what's going to happen next. But I really like the direction of the Kingdom Builders app that they've come up with, and that's for the grant proposal system. So that's check that out, and that's been kind of my access to what a whole bunch of other devs are doing in the community.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not on any of the dev discords, so that's been fun for me to peruse that and see what other people are up to and building.
Yeah, before we skip on to our next segment here, I just want to briefly touch on your website, and before I even mention it, I know we've mentioned it throughout already. I know you did a pretty awesome sort of deep dive, I would say, with Sandwich Punch. So his Inner Growth podcast. If you guys want to learn more, I would definitely invite you guys and send you guys that way. But I do want to sort of take a minute and just compliment some of the things that sort of made my life easier. I love a lot of the other tools out there for sure, but you guys have done some really awesome stuff. I can actually, and if no one else has used the site before, you guys, it's a must. If you're into DFK genetics, this is your one-stop shop. And not only did you guys expanded on that drastically, but now including hairstyle and
Visuals,
you
yeah.
know, I mean, it's so crazy these visual sort of genetics as well. I mean, I know it's all sort of the data is available, but putting it together, I mean, Nine Dwarf, could you talk about some of everything that goes into something like this? I mean, how many hours is he putting into something like this?
Yeah, I've asked him that before too. He's I saw your Gandalf quote at the top of the podcast. He's a he's a programming wizard. He's a programming engineer by trade and loves to do this. And so, I think an hour of his time when he can go to his basement lab and work on this, he can really knock out a lot of features. So this is something that, you know, and you brought this up a little bit ago of you don't know what's going to happen with this project next. We've always been trying to position our project as a way for us to also grow our own resources and capabilities, because we don't know what the future has in store. And so, as he's looked at this, it's an opportunity for him to do web development, and interact with the blockchain, something that he's never had that knowledge. And so he's growing a skill that he has. And for me, it's podcast development and a little bit of data analytics. So trying to dive into this in our spare time, and he ends up finding a good deal amount of this to work on the project. My new goal right now, I'm going after the visual indicator. It's called skeg, and it's a hero with a beard. And so it's actually, if you look at the data, it is essentially the dragoon of hero facial styles for hair. So that's the next thing that I'm going to be summoning after. I didn't think I'd get sucked into the visual traits, like I find myself looking at. I mean, it just, these NFTs are so addicting, and you really grow attached to them. Hello, Sergeant Filthy McNasty, are you there?
Yep. Can you hear me? Sorry about that.
No.
I was talking to myself for a minute. No, I was saying the other thing that sort of impresses me about what all you've done here is the alchemy recipe component of things.
Oh yeah.
This must be fairly new. How did you guys when did this roll out? I don't recall this
Probably
being.
like not that old. About probably four weeks ago at most.
Yeah.
Using a lot of the information that's available in Deck Screener.
Okay.
And
Now,
so we're pulling that information into here, and on the back end, adding up all the elements of what is the market price of going out to buy something versus the crafting price. And so it's something that I've been using on a regular basis, looking at buying stamina potions, or if you also dive a little deeper, we also have the stone carving recipes on here as well. So you can actually look at what would the price of building
oh,
a stone
nice.
versus selling it. And that's actually served me pretty well. And a few community members that we have on Discord, I know they're turning might stones on a fairly regular basis.
Yeah. Oh boy. Arbitrage
lesser
opportunities.
lesser might stones, I should
Yeah.
say.
Yeah. And so I heard you, and you probably didn't hear my comment about the beard. I think it was maybe crypto. I mean, one of our geese friends came up with a bearded character. I was like, wow, that's unique. The other one I saw was a one winged sort of hero. I don't know where that falls in the rarity. I don't know if it's the dragoon or the sage equivalent of sort of
Yeah.
visuals, but it was interesting. I mean, all these different new visuals that are being incorporated into the game.
It's yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty fun. Just another way for you to immerse yourself and feel a part of the game. I think it's really neat.
Yeah, all right. I like it. I love it. I love it. Like I said, guys, feel free to check out the site. I'll go ahead and paste the link here in a minute again. But um, feel free to catch a full deep dive in Sam Punch's sort of inner growth podcast. I think it was his most recent episode. We'll go ahead and play a little game here. It's called "Are You Faster Than Our Guest?" If these questions are hard, you have no one to blame but prior guests because everyone's pretty quick. So I've tried to make them harder each and every time. So we'll see. We'll see. So the way it works is that you'll get three questions, give you an opportunity to answer. So if you get it right, audience, you guys can play at home. Kupo came up with this. Your prize mythic bragging rights, of course. So you may not be quick enough to type them in there, but maybe if you think of the answer, you can at least say, "Hey, I got it before Raph." So, all right, let's go ahead and start with question one. What percent of jewel or crystal from every in-game transaction is burnt?
Oh, geez. I'd have to go look at the white paper. Um, I'm just gonna guess Price is Right style. 10%.
Ooh, 1%. Close if you got rid of that zero. Price is right. Well, I mean, you went over. So,
You're right, right.
all right.
Way over.
All right. So maybe this one's easier. And if not, I tell you, I blame previous
Oh, that's all right.
guest. What quarter are lands at tournaments scheduled to be take place?
What quarter?
Yep. Is it
Uh,
Q2, Q3, gray?
3?
Yeah, Q3. All right. You're. See if we can
I
get you over
didn't
that
have
50%.
that was a nice multiple choice question. I appreciate that.
Well, we'll see. Well, maybe this one's easy, maybe not, but we'll see if we can get you over that 50%
All
threshold
right.
here. How many training quests are there in total?
8.
That's right. That was quick. That was quick. Yeah. So there you go. So you're 2 for 3. Not bad. Not too shabby. Thanks
Yeah,
for playing.
that the first one is I have not studied, and shame on me because I think in our current state we all probably need to brush up on the white papers a little bit. Um, yeah, I not studied that as well as I should have.
No, hey, I have to go back every so often and just pull information to see what I can stump people with. So I'm on the right track here apparently. So we'll spend a few minutes here because there was a lot of information that was divulged today. I wasn't able to catch all of both sort of AMAs, but this is the what did the fox say segment. What did you catch? What did maybe we can start with maybe items you care to chat about or talk through.
Yeah, I think I need to, first off, disclaimer, I need to educate myself a little better on what's happening, and so I'm planning on rereading this, and I would suggest everyone kind of do that the same. I think it gives you a chance to disconnect and be a little less emotional, and a little more logical in process. And I think the first thing to remember is, it sounds like the Kingdom Studios team is going through a lot of hard transitions, but it feels like they have their head up. And I think also it's important to acknowledge that our community members, who are essentially all investors in the game, are also going through some really hard transitions that, I don't know if we're in the middle of the crypto winter, start of the crypto winter, probably not the end of the crypto winter. But if you're like me, it's hurt the portfolio quite a bit. And
Oh
I
yeah.
think something to just kind of keep in mind is it appears at least that the team is willing to react and to start to make some large changes. It's still pretty a little frightening when they start throwing out some terminology out there like we think we have a year of
Yeah.
runway to keep the servers running, and it feels like they've already pulled at least the first parachute by paying their team in lock jewel.
Yeah.
um, and so I think that's it's interesting to see what fallout might continue to happen. I don't think that they're done losing team members. I saw there's a couple higher profile ones today circulating around the Twitter sphere. So um, I think that's something for us to keep in mind, and they're probably going to have to reprioritize and refocus. I think the challenging thing, coupling this with the prior conversation, is they got to get to combat getting out in order for the game to achieve, escape to get to escape velocity.
Hmm.
Otherwise, I think that they're going to continue to struggle or challenge because there's while summoning has been fun for all of us degens out there, it doesn't feel like that's not a sustainable mechanism for keeping people investing in the game. People aren't going to continue to pay to be idiots like myself to see the new visuals on the heroes and to go for the bearded heroes out there. So, I think they need to hit that active game, and so what we've been saying over on our podcast for a long time is, will that happen before the unlocked jewel starts happening? Because I think that's going to put a lot of pressure, right? I notice
Yeah.
and a lot of the AMA questions, Metas has really put the foot on the gas there, and I think it's appropriate. And I think they need to come up with some new solutions or ideas on how to reduce the sell pressure once that happens. If we're at 20 cents now, which I never thought that we'd get down to this level. So that's before the sell pressure of potentially a lot of unlocked jewel coming into the marketplace, probably sometime in August, depending on when the epoch cycle shake out. So I don't know. I just threw a lot of ideas out there. That's kind of where this is at in my head right now. Bunch of word
Yeah.
vomit.
No, for sure. Well, no, and I like playing devil's advocate. Ask anyone who knows me. I would sort of counter argue, and I may have mentioned this before, but for some reason, and it may be very illogical, but for some reason in my head, I'm less worried about a lock jewel sell off at 20 cents than if it were at $22. Um, I think that I imagine for me, uh, that if you've been in the game and if you've not already sold your lock jewel through some third party escrow, you're in it for at least some sort of long haul. You see sort of where the game's going. You see maybe that bigger picture. And that's where I'm betting that people hold off. And maybe they sell at, I don't know, 50 cents a dollar. I don't know, right? But I see that as an opportunity to sort of either go one of two ways, right? It dumps down, faster, quicker, lower, or people hold off and sort of um maybe wait it out a bit longer. And that's one thing. Two, something you mentioned, right? The whole degen thing and sort of hey, summoning for looks and, rarity and whatnot. I sort of think to myself, well, they've already got my money. They've got most of our listeners' money. How do we attract new players? And I see some of those players coming in here and there, but are they at the sustainable number we need, right? And I don't know. I don't know. I think time will tell. Um, I need to myself, revisit that the video recording, maybe read through the Sandwich Punch article a bit further before I can sort of wrap my head around any sort of any sort of firm decisions as to how I feel one way or another on what's going on. Um, I will say that it sounds like at the very least, they are sort of reacting, um, uh, hopefully it's not too late, right? But they are reacting. They are open to things maybe they weren't open to before. Like the idea of reaching out to VCs and maybe selling, a portion, selling portions or selling the part of TFI Studios to maybe some other companies, sort of get them in the mix, part ownership. And again, I don't know these specific details because, like I said, I listened to part of it, but at the very least, I can say, hey, there's a plan. They're working on it.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll see what comes of it. I don't know. What final thoughts there?
Yeah, it feels a little bit like the nice house in the crappy neighborhood right now.
Mm-hmm.
um, and I think that's the hard part about trying to attract VC money
Yeah.
in this climate. And I don't know if I would have done it otherwise. I think they had a really good plan going into the crypto winter, and we didn't know when it was going to start. And I it's hard to say. I'm certainly not here to armchair quarterback
Yeah.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
decisions that they've made. Clearly they've made an amazing product, and these guys are probably way smarter than I'll ever be. So,
Smarter
you know,
than
I
I.
um, I think to comment on the sell pressure, I think a lot depends on. I think that's a really good counterpoint, and um, one thing to probably keep in mind is we have no idea where the price of Jewel might stabilize in the future. And so, what I've been trying to do is, run through a lot of different simulations in my head. And, I'm at a point now where, mentally I'm trying to write off everything in here as this might be a $0 value asset.
Yeah.
And as long as I continue to have fun and enjoy playing the game, and I can at least have sustainability with my assets in game, i.e., like I don't have to keep dumping in money, or I don't have to keep dumping in money at the point where I'm no longer having fun. I think those are kind of like the two thresholds for me that make this work. So I'm in for the long haul. I actually, so at one point this spring, we sold our Gen Zeros, we got out of it, I got back into it. And so I know I'm in for the long haul on this, and I don't know. I really hope this works out. I could see a lot of really big things happening in this space, and it being, entirely groundbreaking.
Well, I will end this segment with saying, I could do a lot more with $20 today than I could when I started.
Yeah, right.
Which to some extent, at least for what you can do now, it sort of makes it a bit more entertaining. Now for the long haul, I mean, absolutely, DFK duos helps, yes, but you need things like PvP, PvE, sort of get the ball rolling and sort of get everyone riled up. Um, I would be a lot more concerned if it was a DFK sort of specific issue, but every market is not looking well. Every crypto project
Right.
is looking very shaky. Stock market, a price, a tank of gas. I mean, right? So,
Yeah.
hopefully, hopefully all that goes into saying, there is hopefully a brighter future, a brighter tomorrow. I'll certainly be here to, see it one way or another. Anyhow, we'll go ahead and end it on a lighter note here. We'll play a final game before we call it here. One of my favorite segments, Duck Duck Goose. So it's two lies and a truth, and I'll leave it up to you to identify which is which. I'll read all three. You can shout out your guesses along the way. At the very end, you have to commit, and and then we'll reveal which one was the goose, the truth, and which were the two ducks. So, uh, let's
What
see.
is it? Two truths, one lie, or
One truth, two lies.
one truth, two lies?
Yep.
Got it.
So, all right. Statement number one. According to Harmony Dashboard, 974,193 jewel were spent in hero sales last week. That's statement one. Statement two. We had 102 new DFK profiles last week. Statement three. There are more yellow eggs in circulation than green eggs.
I would say, oh,
Oh,
the it's funny the way you have this structured with the one truth and two lies.
yes.
Um,
Recapping
I
for you.
I think it's plausible. I think it's entirely plausible that there are more yellow than green eggs. So, but I would say when I hear the other numbers, outside of 102, I guess I should say the jewel spent on summoning, I don't have a good pulse on that. So that number, I think that could just as easily be a truth as a lie. So I'm gonna say that one's a duck. So now I'm narrowing it down between the other two, and I'm trying to recall. I think if gardening or mining came out first, and I honestly I can't remember. I
I can't
think
remember either.
I think gardening came out first, but people have a lot more miners. Um, and so I would guess I believe, and I don't know what the percentage is, but I think there's miners by far and away are the profession that has more. So I'm gonna go with that's the goose.
All right. We have guesses here. Someone, Zachary Parker, says number three is the goose as well. So number three is not the goose.
Oh,
There are in
Zachary,
fact,
I like the way you think.
yeah, there are in fact more green than yellow. We
No.
have 9,051 yellow versus 16,000 green eggs. Number two, we actually had 215 new DFK profiles in the last week, which leaves our goose almost a million jewel were spent in
Wow.
hero sales last week.
Okay. All right.
Um, and that, take that number and sort of do the mental math against. Uh,
$20.
well, yeah, yeah. Oh boy, that would be a sad day. That's what
No.
I was thinking about. Burnt jewel versus the allocation, right?
Yeah.
Um, into the sustainability of things. No, I mean, Raph, it's been great. It's been fun. Leave you with some closing remarks. What would you give, word of advice for someone who's new or someone who's been around in the game? What would you tell them?
Actually, my brother just got into the game, so
Oh,
I
okay.
can give you the advice that I gave him. Um, if you're going to buy, the, bad news, market's in the tank. Good news for you, market's in the tank. And so it's a bit of a buyer's market at this time. So I would say, for those of you who have been in the game already, only continue to bet what you can lose. No sense throwing good money after bad. So just be cautious out there and keep your wits about you. If you can make the game sustainable, please do that. And so by that I mean, spend the jewel that you can generate in game. If you can have that kind of patience, then you're for sure going to be all right in the long run. Now that might be a little more cautious and conservative, but you'll end up all right. And for people just getting into the game, I'm kind of giving my brother some advice at like different tiers of, well, it's really up to you. Again, only spend what you can afford to lose, but kind of tier one, you're never going to buy a cheaper Gen Zero hero if that's something you're interested in, or all the way down to tier three, buy a floor hero and send them on some quests, start getting those items, just get used to navigating the interface, and then start jumping into all these channels or giveaways that people have and see if you can collect a few heroes. And again, you can make this a sustaining mechanism. So it really depends on what your appetite for investment is.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. I get tired of singing the same tune, but I've been saying it I've been trying to get my brother into the game as well, and I keep telling him, hey, you know what? Today's a better day to get in than yesterday. I hope I get, hopefully that ends, not being true someday soon, but it tends to be true, right? With that said, hey, listening audience, get me to 100 subscribers, and I'll be doing another giveaway myself. I have a beautiful pet goose sort of ready to find a new home. So 100 subscribes, we'll be doing another giveaway. Thank you all very much for tuning in. I'll leave you with this message. If you want to be a guest, want to see a guest on this show, feel free to DM me on Discord, on Twitter. Shoot me leave me a comment here, and we'll be glad to have or at least invite that person over. We will reschedule to around Cloud 7. I was initially scheduled to interview him on Sunday. I was a bit too sick for that, so maybe we can get him in this weekend. But with that said, thank you all. You have a nice rest of your Monday.